All right. Um, so hi, my name is Joy. I am the industry chair of the Engineering Student Council, and I'll just be kind of moderating, I'll just be here today. Oh, hi, Lawrence. So today, the Keck Graduate Institute will be conducting a resume workshop, and we look forward to helping you guys develop your resumes. And also, this event will be recorded, so if you missed out on anything and want to check back later, you can. Anyway, here is Courtney Handle from the KGI, and yeah, take it away.
Thank you so much, Joy, and special thanks to Yeeling for helping organize this. I'm happy to be here. As Joy mentioned, my name is Courtney Handle. I am representing Keck Graduate Institute. I work in the admissions department and I do outreach. So if there's any other events that you guys would like to collaborate on with other clubs that you're in or anything, you can always reach out to me. Also, I have included in the chat a link to a Google Doc. So if you sign in and put your information, you'll get some regular emails from KGI, but also follow up from me personally. That way, if you have any questions again or anything after today you want to know more about, you could always reach me via email. So feel free to sign in. But without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and just go through this presentation. Or some slides with some information about how to write your resume and build your resume. So, there we go. All right, can we all see this okay? Good, okay, thank you. Yeah, so just some objectives for this session. Obviously, I'm going to spend some time going over how to write a resume. And I think a lot of students do get a little confused, like where do I even start? What do I include on it? How do I format and style it? So we'll go over some of those basics, as well as kind of a transition into the life sciences industry and what sorts of experiences and skills are valued within that industry, and how KGI through our graduate programs, or maybe you're a sophomore or junior looking for some summer experiences. So we do have those sorts of programs as well that can vamp your resume. So I'm going to go through a little bit of KGI and what we have to offer that can help in these areas. Okay, so just a quick intro, or just to have a little insight into what the resume, like the function of the resume essentially, is obviously for employers to be able to screen applicants and learn whether you're a good fit or not. So when it comes to applying for a job, if you've ever gone on Indeed or any of the job boards, the job that you're applying to is depending on the organization, but mostly will be filtered or screened by a recruiter. So the recruiter's job is really to dwindle down or to screen out or disqualify those that aren't as relevant, and maybe they have 250 resumes and they want to get 5, 6, 7 good candidates to send over to the hiring manager, which I'll talk about that piece in a moment. But when you are using your resume to apply for a job, you want to really keep in mind, think like a recruiter. So just a little bit about me, actually. Before I worked at KGI, I was a recruiter for a recruitment agency in New York City, and I worked with a bunch of different clients, mostly financial services, but some other corporate clients as well. But it's really, when you look at a resume from a job posting, you really do spend about 10-20 seconds to scan it really quickly. So think when you're formatting and when you're applying to a job, is this really going to accurately and concisely reflect my experiences, my skills, and my accomplishments? So always have your recruitment hat on and think, is this actually really relevant to what the job of which I'm applying? Recruiters are also, if there are things that aren't relevant to the job description, you may be immediately, passed over, but also if there's any red flags. So you don't want to give a recruiter a reason to disqualify you. So if your resume is longer than a page or two, especially for undergrads, and when you're starting your career, even with a couple years of experience, you rarely would have enough that would be more than 1 page. So if it is, make sure that you're, kind of weaning out the stuff that isn't relevant. So concise, right? Making sure that you obviously don't have any spelling and grammatical errors or any inconsistencies with formatting, and also avoiding being too wordy. You don't want the recruiter to be a detective and have to, search for information. Their job is literally to get a snapshot, and that's your resume is literally your time to just say, I'm good for this job in a quick 10 seconds. So don't have paragraphs and cliches and obvious responsibilities. So I'll talk about that in a moment, but when you are, kind of writing the bullet points and what you've done in a previous experience or position, you don't just want to take that job description and use those bullet points that are on it, but what are the accomplishments? How are you actually able to achieve those duties that you're supposed to be doing in your position? So highlighting those. So just to delve a little bit deeper, when a recruiter, if you do make that initial screen, maybe the recruiter will give you a call, but they're always going to delve a little bit deeper into your resume and see if there are any inconsistencies with maybe the timeline of your experience. So is the timing and the dates kind of adding up? Were you actually advancing in your position? Did you stay for the right amount of time, or did you make too many changes? We'll call it, being too jumpy. You may have heard that term. So if you're with a job for 6 months and another job with 6 months, that could be a red flag. And also, were you or have you been, consistently seeking new challenges and leadership sort of positions? Other things to remember: never lie on your resume because you will likely be caught. I've seen it happen plenty of times. So make sure that your information is accurate, and don't include anything that you don't want to discuss or are not prepared to discuss in an interview. So once the recruiter has screened your resume and sent it over to the hiring manager, it's the hiring manager's job to hire the most qualified candidate to fit into their organization. So what they're looking for within the first few seconds of looking for your resume is, what is your current level? What are the roles and functions that you can perform? What settings have you performed them in? What's your past experience and your current expertise? So for your current level, this could be kind of measured by obviously the years of your previous experience, the certain job titles you've held. So if you're like a director, associate director, things like that, the degrees that you hold, have you gotten promotions within a company, and what authority do you have over, let's say, managing projects or staff or different sorts of resources? In terms of the roles and functions you can perform, this should be really written out in your resume under the responsibilities and, like I said, the accomplishments of the role that you were doing. And what settings have you performed them in? So if you've worked for a similar company that you're applying to, the organization or the hiring manager is likely to feel that you're a better fit for that sort of company, and also says a lot about the environment that you want to work in. And then for your past experience, what have you done and what do you know? So these are, again, some things that should be pretty evident upon initial look at your resume. That being said, you will likely have multiple, or you should have multiple versions of your resume. So you want to make sure that you're tailoring your experience and your skills and accomplishments based on that specific job description. I went over this, sorry about that. And formatting your resume. So this is pretty wordy, so you don't want your resume to look like this, but this is all the information that you need in order to a good guide for formatting. So again, kept to one page. You want to make sure that you're consistent with the margins, no more than 1 inch all around the page, and should be at least a ½ inch. It should be obviously the same on all sides. The font size should be between 10 and 12. Anything larger,
no, good, we're good.
Or smaller.
Wait, no.
Oops. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so the font size between 10 and 12, and you want to make sure that you're using something that's either like Times New Roman. I always like to use Arial. Bolding, small caps, italics, and other formatting can be used for highlighting. I'll show you some examples in a little bit. Bullets should be like circles or squares, and used within the experience section. And then try not to put tables, templates, page borders, anything that's too kind of out there and fancy. I mean, also another thing too, it does depend on the industry that you're applying to. So you want to make sure that you're looking at what are the norms for the industry. So if you're in something that's maybe more like graphic design, artsy, obviously, your resume will look different. But I since I'm speaking to more engineering students, and this rule certainly applies, that you don't want it to be, you know, too crazy looking, or anything outside of a traditional kind of Times New Roman like font. You can use horizontal lines between major sections, but just make sure that you're consistent, again, with your dates, your punctuation, things like that. And you can left justify your resume. Again, we'll look at some examples of what that looks like. And then the sections you want to include can be in the, or should be in the following order. Obviously your name, your email address, your number. You don't have to really put your home address on your resume, but making sure that you first obviously have your contact information, something called a positioning statement I'll go over in a little bit, your education, then your experience, and then other sections like skills, projects, other things you want to highlight. So this is just some examples of the top section. Like I said, the contact information, it could look something like this. And then the education. So you want to make sure that you are like bolding, again, either the program or the school, putting those dates there if you're not, or if you're expecting to graduate, your expected date. And then you can always include your GPA if it is within the top 50%, and certain things like, you know, it was the treasurer or the president of a club or a fraternity or organization. And examples of the experience section where I mentioned those bullet points and dates and bolding certain things. So again, as long as you are consistent throughout, it could look anything like this. I always like to highlight the title, like the top square there, highlight the title, then you can put the company, and then just make sure that like the date, each line is again consistent. You can use italics to just kind of give a one sentence snapshot of what you really did or accomplished in the company, and then your bullet points after that, which you'll see there's a lot of numbers. So like I said, making sure you're highlighting again those accomplishments and quantifying it in those bullet points. So what is a positioning statement? So it's a 3 to 4 line targeted profile that sums up your past experience, your transferable skills, and your career goals. So it's really giving a clear shot of what I can do and what I want to do and the skills that I have to do it. Basically, think of it as a summary of what the recruiter is going to see in the rest of your resume, and making sure that the resume itself is kind of showing or exemplifying that you have done that in your previous experience and positions, right? So they're not, and I see this a lot, looking for this sort of job in this sort of company. So keep in mind, again, your recruitment hat, they're more interested in what you have to offer, not what you want. So you want to make sure that you are targeting that to the receiving audience, as this says, and using terminology common in industry or functional areas that you're targeting. And that will also kind of give you a little bit more credibility into your knowledge of the industry. So these are just a couple of examples. You'll see this one here: biopharmaceutical professional with a strong scientific background, 8 years of experience in drug discovery and development, proven initiator and strategic thinker with effective relationship management, project management, and interpersonal skills, seeking a summer internship in business development in the pharmaceutical industry. And as it states down here, which I said earlier, you want to make sure that that statement is going to be then supported by the information in the rest of the resume. Some further considerations, and you can find lists of these with a quick Google search of action and power words, but this is just a good example and a good exercise to keep in mind, that, you know, when you talk about each accomplishment in your previous positions and experiences, that you're starting it with an action word to kind of draw the reader's attention. So you'll see here the example of, let's say, human resources or recruiting manager. So the skills: interpreted hiring criteria, interviewed candidates, administered or interpreted tests to applicants, you know, all those things there. Okay, so instead of just saying interpreted hiring criteria, okay, how did you actually do that? Or what did you do for that sort of skill that you did in the job? Well, I decreased required in training time by 29%. reduced turnover by 31%. Recognized by Kraft as the top recruiter for diversity recruitment for 1998. See how that's different than just the bullet points on the left. I could do a quick, if I'm a recruiter and I see that you were a recruiting manager, I could go on Indeed and write recruiting manager and see that, you know, you're required to interpret hiring data. You're required to interview candidates. Okay, I know that that's what that position entails, but you know, how did you excel in it and actually like help the organization? So accomplishments, always keep that in mind. And then also when it comes to the additional information section, this is a really good way for you to not only highlight certain things that don't fit into other, you know, parts of the resume. For example, if you are fluent in other languages or a specific, I don't know, software language, let's say, but also to bring out some of your character and know your audience, obviously. So you can be funny, you can be, you know, show some things that give you a person behind just, you know, the accomplishments you did outside of the work environment. But it's know your audience, know the organization that you're applying to. Like you said, it should be tailored. So you want to be careful with that and what you include, but some of these things are good examples. So if you were a coach for, I don't know, an athletic team, that's something that's good to include, which shows that you were able to, you know, lead, right? And work with a variety of, or like a population underneath you. If you're interested or know how to do professional photography, you never know if the hiring manager is, I don't know, does photography, you know, as an interest on their own. That might be a conversation piece. So just something to point out and include in the additional information skills section of the resume. So I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there are any questions about kind of just the basics of writing a resume, or any questions or specific things with your own resume that you need help on. I feel like this might be a good place to stop and see. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to keep going. So as I mentioned, I'd like to just give a little intro into the life sciences industry and some of the skills and experiences that are valued within, as well as how, again, KGI can prepare you for getting those. So when we talk about the life sciences industry, you could put it into 4 different areas: pharmaceuticals, biologics, medical devices, and diagnostics. Just to point out, you know, pharmaceuticals are, as you see in that photo, usually like pill form, taken orally, manufactured pretty like straightforward using simple chemistry, whereas biologics is more advanced technology and medicines that are usually administered intravenously and require working with living systems and way more complex, larger molecules and re-engineering in the lab setting. And then medical devices and diagnostics, that's pretty self-explanatory. But this slide just shows the different areas and positions. You could maybe think of it as departments in a big life sciences company, but hiring managers reported that these sorts of positions are the most challenging to fill. So if you do have an interest in going into life sciences, and I know that I'm speaking to engineers here, so it could be engineering medical devices, it could be being a process engineer for biologics, but having a skill set within any of these areas is definitely looks good on the resume. So regulatory affairs and compliance is huge, and you can think of that as really making sure that you are complying with all the safety regulations and policies out there by the governing bodies like the FDA to make sure that we're able to produce and bring safe drugs to market and technology. process development, so developing processes for the entire production really of what it is that you are creating. Quality assurance, again, making sure that the quality is there and that it's safe and effective. Research and development, clinical research, engineering is huge. Data analytics, medical affairs, so being able to communicate with different healthcare providers on what it is, what the product is and how to use it, and all that good stuff. And then manufacturing. When it comes to medical devices, because some of you, again, as engineers may be interested in creating a medical device, there are tons of opportunities out there. There's over 40,000 jobs listed nationally last year, or I think this was 2019, but anything from being a mechanical engineer, electrical engineering, quality, manufacturing, systems, chemical. So it takes it's very interdisciplinary when it comes to creating a med device, but having any sort of background or degree in any of these areas would definitely be looked for within this industry. And then technical skills. So when asking hiring managers what the most requested specialized skills for these positions were, these were some of the bigger areas which we found are product development, project management, so planning, scheduling, budgeting, quality assurance and quality control, data analysis, and product management. And then soft skills, again, this is something that when asking hiring managers in medical device industry and diagnostic industry, what soft skills, are really looked for and required. It's communication. So you'll see that on a lot of job descriptions, written and oral communication, right? So that's huge if you can exemplify on your resume that, how you were able to actually do that, or that you can do that skill, that you are a team player and can work with different groups, that you're good at working through problems and solving them, having a creative nature or entrepreneurial spirit looks good, and being organized as well. So just to put a little sort of context behind what some of these functional areas are within this industry, I like to show it on sort of a timeline. Everything starts with a question or a research question, right? Or identifying, in this case, an unmet medical need. From there, then your research and development, doing those clinical trials, then bringing that to the FDA and drafting those reports and showing that, this is something that we can safely produce and treat patients here in the US with. And once that's approved, then production and sales. So these are just the different areas kind of within those buckets. So market research, for example, does before you invest, let's say, billions of dollars into creating, let's say, a new diagnostic testing device, you need to do market research, speak to doctors, different healthcare providers, and see, is there a market for this, and does it make sense for us to invest in developing this, for example, diagnostic testing device for endometriosis, right? We need folks that are in the lab, that are doing drug discovery, that again are doing that process development. We need folks that are kind of more in a leadership position, that are doing the project management, that are allocating the budget and the funds and making sure that you're delivering on the timeline that you had set. Business development and finance is huge. Like I said, it takes billions of dollars to bring a drug or new medical technology to market. So we need folks that are able to get the investment from the funders, and to make sure that we're handling the finances correctly. Obviously, engineering and design, medical science liaison, that's again being able to communicate with different healthcare providers and what it is that you've produced and how to use the technology. Those that are able to design the clinical studies, that are able to bring in participants, and then also work with the FDA on getting those approvals and drafting those reports. And then, folks that are able to do the marketing and sales of the medical product, who are coming up also those that are coming up with manufacturing processes, operations and supply chain functions, and then continued compliance and quality assurance and control. So if any of those sorts of positions sound interesting, or career paths sound interesting to you, I always suggest that you take a look at our ebook on the KGI website. The link is up there. You could also just probably do a Google search or search on the KGI website for ebook, and it will come up. But you put in your email address and you're able to download this PDF, which highlights different titles and career paths within this industry. And we'll give a snapshot or a paragraph into what that job title is, but then highlight a industry professional and KGI alum who works as that position in industry, with some Q&A, like what has your career path been like? What's a typical day like? What are the most challenging parts of your position? What do you find the most rewarding? So it's a really good resource to just see the different, or put some context behind some of these job titles and functional areas that are out there. So just to kind of come back to, what leads to a good job. And this is going to be a little bit redundant to the resume, but it's good to just remind ourselves that there are four factors, or four main factors, right? So skill sets, job experience, and then social capital and reputation of your degree. So we're really focusing on skill sets and job experience today for that resume piece. But whatever you do, whatever your path is, whatever industry you go into, as we spoke about earlier, making sure that you are choosing the right experiences that can exemplify that you have those technical skills, that you have what it takes to do the job, that you've excelled in it, and you've had accomplishments within it, and that everything is pretty much relevant to what you want to do or where you want to be in the future. Skill sets could be more of those technical things, like I said, proficiency in a software language, for example. And reputation of your degree, obviously that's something on your resume. So not just, okay, did I come from a nationally ranked institution, but being very strategic in the program that you pick. So knowing what the reputation of that degree is within that specific industry that you want to go into is huge. So I can speak for KGI, and obviously we're a smaller school, and when I speak to undergrad students, I do hear often, no, I haven't heard of KGI. Well, if you look on I guess you can call it the output side, and if you speak to employers and different leading companies within this industry, they very much so recognize KGI. They very much so recognize the specific degrees and the niche areas that we have within this industry. And it looks really good on the resume, so they feel more confident within that. So just things to keep in mind, that when you want to make sure that in undergrad, getting all the experiences you can to figure out what it is you really want to do, and then from there making sure that you're strategic in the internships and the projects you work on and the jobs that you take, so that it can kind of lead to progression within that area. So just transitioning now to KGI and how we're actually able to develop those four factors that lead to a good job. We do that through our hands-on learning approach. So KGI students do get the opportunity to work with some of these top healthcare and life science companies, and that could be through your internships. Usually the programs will require a paid internship between the first and second year. You always have the opportunity to work on a corporate sponsored project. In a lot of the master's programs, this is considered your capstone in the second year of the program. So that's, again, kind of working or consulting for a healthcare company. Let's say it's Edwards Life Sciences or Medtronic, right? Johnson & Johnson, Thermo Fisher. and being able to put on your resume, not just, hey, I got a degree or a master's in engineering, but I got, I worked for this company and I did X, Y, and Z. I developed a business strategy, or developed a supply chain function for this, medical device, things like that. And also the experiential education, the way that we really feel the best way to learn is by doing. And we take that flipped classroom approach, where it's not just standing up and lecturing to students and seeing what you can remember and regurgitating it on an exam, but really giving you, problem solving sorts of projects to work on, and working in a team-based collaborative sort of environment, having group discussions, and again, team-based projects is huge. Building that social capital, and if you guys are attending tomorrow, we're going to talk about expanding your network, but that really is huge and could sometimes be what the factor that really enables you to progress in your career, by making those industry connections. And that's something that we really foster at KGI. We have huge ties to industry. It's not uncommon to, have, like a VP of a company, or EVP of a department, or whatever it is, around campus. We did have the CEO of Edwards Life Sciences pop into a Zoom classroom this semester, things like that. So there's always this invaluable opportunity to network, and to, maybe even skip that first step of the recruiter, putting your resume out there, applying online, and having the recruiter scan it. This is actually, a way to, through the events we have on campus and industry speakers, a way for you to even put your resume in the hands of a hiring manager, or someone that may be a hiring manager a little bit down the line. And then building those soft skills again. I know I had that slide earlier about how the medical device industry is really looking for some of those soft skills that could be lacking and can't be taught in a lecture style classroom. And being able to work with different people, to be collaborative, to be professional. Those are things that we also foster at KGI through the way that we take that learning approach of those team-based projects. So it's interesting, sometimes these skills can outweigh technical skills. And there's so many, you're competing with a lot of candidates out there on the market that may have engineering degrees, that may have those technical aspects. But what is going to really set you apart, especially if you're in the interview process, is that kind of, professionalism, the ability to connect and to communicate, things like that. So that's definitely a huge skill to have, or huge skills to have. I worked with a company and a hiring manager who, interestingly enough, and the job was pretty technical, but it was like, I honestly don't really care what's on their resume. I don't really care what their degree is. I just want smart people that can work with others. So his interview process was, more brain teasers, things like that. So if you weren't able to kind of work through that, then that could have been a disqualifier. So it was pretty interesting. So just a little example that this actually is way more important than some people think. So for KGI, and I encourage you all, when you're choosing a grad program, to look at what the outcome and the statistics are, and are the graduates being hired? Where are they going? So for us, since we do have a lot of students on a med school track, we have 70% who applied that were accepted to med school, which is above the national average. So we're proud of that. In terms of salary data, our alum make 124K on average, but 33% of those are making more than 150K. So that's just showing, and I believe the average in California is about 119. So our graduates are already above that and growing in their careers. And 90% of our students are employed within 6 months of graduation. That's a really big number. And I could say about 3/4 of that do secure their first job through the KGI connection. So again, that social capital and networking piece that you're able to build here at KGI. So certain things to keep in mind if you're considering graduate school. These for us, this is the top 10 employers of our alumni. So you'll see that we do have that trusted name and a reputable name within this industry. So Amgen hires so many of our graduates: Gilead, CVS, Genentech, BioMarin, Kite Pharma, Illumina, Kaiser, Biocon, and Regeneron. You may recognize some of those names there. So I'm just going to show a little bit about the programs that we have at KGI. So we do kind of put it into 3 buckets, and I like to think of it similar to that timeline I had shown earlier of identifying an unmet need to the production and sales. Research being kind of the the market research, the drug discovery sort of piece of it. Industry bucket being more of, okay, how do we translate that research to an actual product? And then healthcare, those white coat professions that are patient facing and using these drugs, diagnostic testing devices, medical devices to diagnose and treat patients. So we prepare students for careers within those 3 buckets, but I like that, this graphic shows the gears working together, because that's really, it really does, it takes its value to understand the entire process, right? So that's what we give our students at KGI, is that industry exposure. So regardless of the program that you're in at KGI, for example, if you're in a research program and your goal is to get a PhD or to go to med school, you're still going to have that industry exposure and that kind of biotech woven into your coursework, which enables our students to work in a variety of settings. So these are the research programs that we have. We have a MS in Applied Life Sciences and MS in Translational Medicine that's partnered with City of Hope. Again, these are more for students that are, really looking to do more either clinical research, translational research, even public health research, right? Often students will go on to med school from one of these 2 degrees, or go on into our PhD program, or go into industry in sort of like an R&D setting. The industry program, so we have a Master of Business and Science, the MBS degree. This is a great degree for students that want to build on their science background, but see themselves in more of a project management capacity, and not really in the lab doing the technical hands-on science work, but maybe managing those sorts of folks or projects that the researchers are working on. The MEng in biopharmaceutical processing. So I had mentioned process engineering earlier. This program is really designed to meet the growing need for commercializing complex drug molecules like insulin, CAR T-cell therapy, things like that. And then our MS in Human Genetics and Genomic Data Analytics. So this is looking at large patient data sets and genomic information, analyzing that, identifying trends, and using that information to make recommendations for point of care diagnostics and more precision medicine based on a population or even a person's genetic makeup. And then our MS in Medical Device Engineering. Since, again, a group of engineers here, this could be of interest, but it's a 2-year program for students that are looking to go into engineering roles within the medical device industry or diagnostic industry. And then the healthcare programs, PharmD. We have genetic counseling. We have post-bac programs preparing students for either going on to PA school or med school. We are starting our OT program as well as our PA program in 2022, which we're really excited about. And then we're also opening our med school in the next few years. Hopefully we'll have our first incoming class. So just some things on the horizon. But that being said, outside of, if you're not a graduating senior, you're not looking to apply to grad school at this time, and you want to still find ways to vamp your resume during undergrad, then summer programs at KGI are a really great way to do that. And again, being an undergrad is really the time to explore the career path that you want to take. And I always encourage students to do as much as you can because it takes doing something or being exposed to it in some way to know if you want to do it or never do it again, right? So I suggest if life sciences interests you or any one of those career paths and degrees that we have interest you, then try a summer program. Most of them are tied to a master's program at KGI, and you could think of it as kind of like a trial run or a boot camp sort of condensed version of what that master's program would look like, or at least the career areas within what that program is meant to be preparing you for. So for example, if you're interested in medical devices, you can do the medical device development boot camp. We're mostly offering a virtual op session as well as in person for 21. Obviously we'll see what happens, but if you're able to come on campus and join us, that'd be great. Most of them are free to attend, but again, for example, the medical device development boot camp is, I believe, around 6 weeks. You'll work in a team-based environment with various students from various backgrounds and look at what it really takes to do the product development and prototyping of a med device. So you'll work in what we call the MAD lab, which is our medical assistive device lab, where we have 3D printers, laser cutters, electrical workbenches, different sorts of software, a computer software, and work in a team project of prototyping a med device. But aside from that, you'll also do professional development, different workshops, have industry speakers come in. So I believe that sometimes we have the FDA come in one day and speak about what it takes to really get some of these things approved. So it's just a good snapshot into what the masters would look like and this sort of industry and the career options, and tons of networking opportunities as well. So definitely encourage you. You can start applying anytime. The applications are open and on our website. And you will need a resume, a letter of recommendation, unofficial transcripts, and a personal statement, or depending on the program, there may be some essay prompts. But yes, and then there's a small application fee as well. And should you be accepted and attend one of these programs, if it coincides with any of the master's programs in the RIG school, then you have the benefit of waiving the standardized test component on the graduate application, as well as receiving a letter of recommendation from our faculty. So just some added benefits to completing summer. If you decide, I loved that program, I want to go to grad school and I want to go into this industry, then it kind of makes it a little bit easier, or satisfies a few requirements for that graduate application. So that is all I have for you guys. Here's my information. Oops, go back to that, sorry. My information, oh, here we go. There, okay. So there's my email address if you want to reach out to me, but I think that I'm just going to open it up right now to see if anybody has any questions about anything. It could be more general resume, tips, or KGI specific information. Feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself. You're welcome. Oh, and don't forget, if you want to sign in on the Google Sheet, then you'll get some KGI emails and we can stay in touch.
All right. So that about wraps it up. Thank you for coming, guys. Special thanks to Courtney and the Keck Graduate Institute for hosting this event. And we look forward to seeing you guys at future ESC events. So keep your eyes out for the CAPS event that we will be hosting this weekend. Flyers will be emailed sometime soon. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at UCSB.ESC, which I will send in the chat. And also our Facebook page, which I will send in the chat. And feel free to check out our website for more information. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Thank you for coming, you guys. Yeah, see you around.
Thank you, Courtney.
You're welcome.